I'm John Rodgers from Cuyahoga Falls, and we're going to do a two-part group here, Interesting Things and Places, and I might even call it Interesting Places and Things, and we'll do a part one and a part two. These are a number of subjects that I had an interest in, but they were fairly short subjects. I wouldn't do a whole program on them. Some of them are indeed things, and later on in the second part you'll even see the inside of a bald-faced hornet nest, among other things. But the first place we're going to look at is Mount St. Helen. Now I will have these that have the locations, and I will have a red arrow pointing to it, and you're supposed to know the state. Actually, this one is the state of Washington. On May 18, 1980, Mount St. Helen, you're not seeing the mountain yet. As a matter of fact, you will not see the top of the mountain because it will have clouds on it. But on May 18, 1980, Mount St. Helen in the state of Washington erupted with a force that had not been seen in the Cascade Range for a long time. It's estimated that the force was 500 times more powerful than the atomic bomb dropped in Hiroshima. 500 times more powerful. You're seeing a river that is still clogged with mud from that. Avalanches 12 miles wide and 5 miles long descended through the forest, wiping it out. Anything standing was flattened by hot winds traveling up to 200 miles per hour. The death toll included 57 humans, 67,000 animals and game birds. And later, about 1.5 million animal and bird deaths were caused by the ash fall. In addition to things that happened close to the mountain, eastern Washington was covered with 7 inches of ash. And that is the mountain right there. And you will see it closer, but it will always have that cloud, those clouds over the top of it. There it is a little closer. Just north of the mountain, Spirit Lake rose 200 feet with millions of gallons of water spilling over. Rock, some in the size of boulders, ice, ash, mud, and gas came down the side of Mount St. Helen. And you are seeing large trees treated like they had been matchsticks as the advancing gas and everything else came down. And just the plain shock force of it. Even at some distance from the mountain, the ash caused problems with cars. Lights went on in midday. Ships were blocked because of the buildup of ash in the bottoms of channels. And there's some more of the mud in that same river that I was talking about. And remember, this is photographed 16 years after the blow. Mount St. Helen is a volcano in the Cascade Range. Mount Rainier, also in Washington, Mount Hood, the Three Sisters and Cradle Lake in Oregon, and Mount Shasta and Mount Lassen in California are some of the other volcanoes in the Cascade Range. And you're looking straight on to Mount St. Helen right now. The mountain is often shrouded in clouds, and thus you may not get a view of the top. Going in towards the mountains on the north side, you see the North Fork of the Toutle River, which reached a temperature of 90 degrees that day of eruption. Its valley is still filled with mud, and you've seen some of that from landslides caused by the eruption. And now you're looking at a beautiful lake. This is a new lake. It can be found on this road north of the mountain, and it's called Coldwater Lake. Some vegetative growth is underway, and these little guys are back in there in force, but many dead trees and stumps can still be seen. The evidence of the power of Mother Nature is a sight to behold. Just some beautiful flowers around Coldwater Lake. And even though you're standing there and it looks like a normal mountain lake, you can see where hillsides like this have just been devastated by the eruption of Mount St. Helen. And all of that standing stuff that somehow or other did not get knocked flat, probably by the projection of peaks and so forth, is nevertheless dead. But here's what's happening. A lot of the land was forestry land. Some of it was private timber companies and who have come in and replanted. And so there is growth going on even as Mother Nature tries to patch things back up. Mount St. Helens, just a fantastic place. And now for the last picture in this little set, that is Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier, I mentioned, is in Washington State. It's one of the Cascade Peaks. And Mount Rainier is so big that you're looking at it from a minimum of 55 miles away. It's a national park, incidentally. Okay, we're going to change to another subject. And we're going into the District of Columbia, and we're going to look at 3 monuments in the nation's capital. And the first one is the Washington Monument. Well, let me get you oriented a little bit. This is the Capitol building, this is the mall, and all the way out here is the Lincoln Memorial. This is the Washington Memorial, or Washington Monument, and this is the Jefferson Memorial. Those are the 3 that we're going to look at. This is the White House over here. And that's the way Washington is laid out. It's a very good map. I suggest you get hold of one if you get down to Washington. Now for this, I'm over in the cemetery at Arlington, looking across the bridge. This is the Potomac River. This is the Washington Monument. That's the Capitol down there. And this is the Lincoln Memorial. The Jefferson Memorial is off to the right by a tidal pool out of the picture. And first, the Washington Monument. He might have been first in the hearts of his countrymen, but it took a long time to say that by way of a monument. The cornerstone was laid on July the 4th, 1848, using the trowel that George Washington had used on the Capitol cornerstone in 1793. However, in 1854, work stopped, and for 25 years, this tribute to Washington stood at the 125-foot level. Finally, the Engineer Corps of the War Department was put in charge, and in 1880, work resumed. On December the 6th, 1884, the capstone was put in place, completing the structure. It topped out at 555 feet. It was not open to the public until October the 9th, 1888. I have no idea why 4 years passed. There is an elevator and also 898 steps if you want to use them instead. Each side of the base is 55 feet, and it tapers to 34 feet at the top. The face is white marble. 190 carved stones from all over can be seen if you come down those stairs. And that's what I would suggest. Go up on the elevator and come down the stairs. Those stones are from states, territories, other countries, and some are very, very ancient. I'm standing right in front of the Capitol now, taking the picture down the mall of the Washington Monument. The second one we're going to look at is the Lincoln Memorial. This may well be the finest memorial that you and I will ever see. It has a feeling all its own, but it draws you into it. And there is indeed a feeling of the great man here. Take your time, read again the Gettysburg Address. Henry Bacon was the architect of the building. Ground was broken on February the 12th, 1914, with the cornerstone being laid a year later. The sculptor was Daniel Chester French, but the statue that you actually see was carved in New York by the Piccirilli brothers, with Daniel Chester French assisting. The statue is 19 feet high and 19 feet wide, and was carved from 28 blocks of Georgia white marble over a 4-year period. 36 surrounding columns represent the number of states at the time of Lincoln's death. The dedication was held on May 30th, 1922, with over 100,000 people on the grounds. Now we've moved over to the Jefferson Memorial on one of the tidal basins, and yes, those are cherry blooms. This memorial lines up with the south edge of the White House, both being perpendicular to the Capitol, Washington Monument, Lincoln Memorial line. It is circular, colonnaded, and in a classic style, and would no doubt be pleasing to Thomas Jefferson. The ceiling of the dome of Indiana limestone is 67 feet above the floor. Rudolph Evans was the sculptor of the 19-foot statue of Jefferson. The 4 panels give a few famous and meaningful quotations on the inside walls. The cornerstone was laid on November 15th, 1939, and the dedication was held on April 13th, 1943, the 200th anniversary of Jefferson's birth. Now I'm going to end the part in D.C. with this Washington Monument photograph at sunset looking down the mall from the Capitol. And we're going to move out to the other part of the country, out to the Oregon seacoast. Stand here on the shore of the largest ocean in the world, the Pacific, and remember that we do live in an ocean world. Along this coastline of Oregon, rocky outcroppings take their turns with sandy beaches and drawing your attention. Sea stacks and breaking surf decorate the scene. Clouds, like you're looking at, come in and make soft, vaporous pictures of the cliffs along the shore. Gaze in wonder from this vantage point. Now, I could show you a lot of different places with that same gaze and wonder from this vantage point. Now, come on out almost to the breaking surf, and I don't quite have you in the right place. Well, this is the area of tidal pools, and they require closer attention. We'll see them in just a minute. Here's some more of the clouds coming in. And this is an area down below here where there are tidal pools. Small fish, anemones, crabs, periwinkles, and other creatures make their homes in these pools. Gulls and other birds find haven and food in this edge of the Pacific Ocean. Some of the tidal pools are right down in there, but I have pictures in a moment. Oh, here we are down in the tidal pool area now. All kinds of things happen down in the tidal pools, all sorts of things. These plants that you see here, these are anemones. Now let's see, is an anemone a plant or an animal? I can't really remember. It looks like it's a bit of both. And here's a beautiful composite, you might say, of a number of the things that I have talked about so far. One spot along this Oregon seacoast will, for a fee, provide you with a remarkably close view of hundreds of stellar sea lions. These creatures spend a lot of time on rocky ledges on land. As a matter of fact, I'm taking this picture from the sea lion caves area, and I'll get you into those in a moment. So these creatures spend a lot of time on rocky ledges on land, but in many ways they behave as one of Mother Sea's creatures. Here at Sea Lion Cave, you go into the cave. I wanted to show you this Hysetta light, the Hysetta Head lighthouse. And here at Sea Lion Caves, you go into the caves, which in winter or in storms provide safe havens for the sea lions. In the summer, only a few animals will be in the cave, but you get an interesting view of that same Hysetta lighthouse. These are some of the sea lions basking in there, right against the waves, and here's what they look like. These are big creatures too. Right down here is one of the bulls, and I think that's a bull there also. And here is inside the sea lion caves. Now, at this time, there were about only 7 or 8 sea lions in there. You can see a couple laying on the rock over there, but mostly they're out because the weather is so good. Marvel at the continuous movement of ocean water as you watch the breaking waves. Think about the variety and abundance of life in this ocean. Listen to those waves and let their soothing rhythm take over your whole being. And accept this as one of the great gifts of Mother Sea. Take advantage of this place where you stand and carry the memory of this scene with you forever. Now we're going out into northern Utah to the place that they call the Golden Spike. Golden Spike is a National Historic Site north of Great Salt Lake at Promontory Summit in Utah. It marks the spot where the first transcontinental railroad came together. The Union Pacific Railroad had started from Omaha and laid 1,086 miles of track, while the Central Pacific had started at Sacramento and laid 690 miles, including the part over the Sierra Nevada. And we are up in this area here. The road comes out this way and the road comes in this way. And if you can't see it, here's Great Salt Lake. This is Salt Lake City, and this is the Great Salt Lake itself. And this is the border right here. This is Idaho right above here. So we're in the very northern part of Utah as we look at this. And here's that famous old painting, because the historic meeting took place on May 10th, 1869, and yes, they had photography back there. They had it even before the Civil War. So this is an actual photograph that I made a slide from. Now here's, you saw the engines before, and they have recreated these as close as they can to the original, to the point that one of them burns wood and the other one burns coal, just like they did on the day of the meeting. And on one of the golden spikes, there were 2 gold, 1 silver, and 1 gold, silver, and iron. So there were, let's see, 2 gold, 1 silver, so there were 4. On one of the golden spikes was engraved, "May God continue the unity of our country as this railroad unites the 2 great oceans of the world." And in a tide that was approximately in that place, and you can see the fronts of the 2 engines, that's where the golden spike was put in. Surveyors kept hundreds of miles ahead of the laying crews, but the men making the cuts and building the trestles were just ahead of the track layers. There were 2,500 cross ties per mile. A rail was 28 to 30 feet and required 10 spikes. Boy, they had this down, required 10 spikes, 3 blows per spike. No grade was greater than 2.2 degrees. Percentage points, I guess, 2.2%. Track was usually laid 2 to 5 miles each day, but the Central Pacific set a record with 10 miles laid in one day at an area not far from Promontory Summit. I'll show you that sign in just a moment. Many of the workers were Chinese, and after the Civil War, many Irish immigrants joined the crew. Now, I have to get these railroads straight. The Central Pacific, we are now in my van riding on the roadbed of the Central Pacific heading for Promontory Summit. We have gone to the west, and there's a place where you can cut right on and ride on the very roadbed of the first transcontinental railroad. The tracks were pulled up, as I will mention, for scrap during World War II. But this is the roadbed right here, and we're in my van going over it. Because the new meeting point was shifted to Ogden, track was taken up for use as scrap in World War II. Here is that 10 mile of track laid in one day. They've actually brought it in by the Visitors Center, but it was out to the west just a little bit. The 2 companies went past each other in the laying, trying to get more land, and this is over to the east, and we are on the roadbed of that company now. Because of these changes, you can now ride on the roadbeds, as I've mentioned. And while we were there, they started up one of the engines and backed it out and brought it back in, just so that you can see that they can run. Both of them operate, and they store them in a building about a mile away. And right between those 2 locomotives is where the Golden Spike was hammered in. If you're not familiar with it, this plant right here by the old wagon, that is one of the high sagebrushes of the West. And here the two face each other. The one on this side is named Jupiter. I can't remember what the other one is named. I got a little suggestion here with JUP, but I don't remember what the other one was named. Now we're going to stay out west, but we're going to go up into South Dakota to Badlands National Park. Now you'll find Badlands in other places of the west, but this is the national park. The rolling grasslands of the Great Plains stretching to the horizon, I should say the rolling grasslands of the Great Plains stretching to the horizon has become an accustomed sight as the road goes west. But now you've reached the edge of something very different. Feast your eyes on erosion on a grand scale, formations called badlands. Millions of years ago, this area was covered by a large inland sea. That changed to marshy plains and then to what we know today as the Great Plains. You can see the layers laid down by that sea. Various forces have been at work here: water, wind, wind-driven sand, temperature changes. Now, I don't have these animals in here, but on the grassy places, pronghorn or antelope make their home. I have seen antelope in the Black Hills, in the Badlands, but very hard to photograph, too far away. And I have never seen the buffalo that are back into this strange country. I've photographed buffalo and antelope in other places. Prairie dogs, rabbits, coyote, mule deer, bighorn sheep, and many other animals find places that meet their needs here. But the wolf, the grizzly bear, and the elk are gone. This is Plains Indians' land, and the Sioux or Lakota roam this area following the buffalo. After the white man had taken all of their land, the Sioux simply wanted to return to the old days. They turned to the ghost dance, a dance to bring back the buffalo and remove the white man. And it sort of drove the army crazy. But just south of here, and so just south of here, is a place called Wounded Knee, where Sioux Indians suffered so very much. And somewhere out in this country by the Badlands is the burial place of Chief Crazy Horse. They don't know exactly where. His mother and father, after he was stabbed to death when he was in captivity, his mother and father got his body, disappeared from Wounded Knee for 24 hours, and so somewhere out there he is buried. Take with you a feel for this vast and harsh land. Dwell now on its beauty as you gaze at those layers of stone laid down by a sea out here in South Dakota. Once you've absorbed all that your mind can hold, you may want to see some of the forests of the Black Hills over to the west. It's hard to imagine all this erosion, and it's a completely different type. It gives you a different feeling than when you're at Bryce Canyon and you see that. That's all in little spires and all, and this is a vastness here that's a little harder to comprehend. That is the prairie sunflower there in the lower part of the picture. Now one more, and we are going to do a complete change in what we're looking at, because we're going from the Badlands into North Carolina to Biltmore Estate. I told you this was going to be a lot of different things. It is. Just outside of Asheville, North Carolina, about 8,000 acres of woods, ravines, and rolling countryside provides a setting for this chateau. Little bungalow, wouldn't you say? George W. Vanderbilt was the man behind the whole venture. It was built in the French Renaissance style in the early 1890s and was opened in 1895. It contains 250 rooms, art treasures, antique furniture, Napoleon's chess set, and numerous additional features. And these features on the outside, like you're looking at now, are really, really something. 'Twas said that it cost $7 million to build it and $21 million to furnish it. About 1,000 workers, many skilled artisans, worked for 5 years to build this imposing structure. Again, I had to go to pictures from postcards and the folders. This is the banquet room. At the far end, down in here, are 3 fireplaces that, as I understand it, each one of them can hold a cord of wood. And this banquet room can handle quite a few people, a lot more than the settings at that table right now, than the chairs at that table right now. That's the banquet room. And I think this is the library, a part of the library. And I believe this one is simply called the Oak Room. The estate began as 125,000 acres, but part of that became the nucleus of Pisgah National Forest, and other portions became part of the Blue Ridge Parkway. But much was kept to provide for many gardens. An Italian water garden, you'll see that one in a moment, an extensive rose garden, and then other small ones. The entrance road from Biltmore Village to the chateau is 3 miles long, and its borders feature rhododendron, mountain laurel, and many other beautiful shrubs. This is looking out from the one of the trellises into the rose garden. And if you're not familiar with this flower in the foreground with the top of the chateau in the back, this is called red hot polka. Some of the other beautiful flowers, I think that one's called butterfly weed. And here's the Italian water gardens. There's several pools there. And over in the background, that's the Blue Ridge Mountains over there. Quite a nice place. For many years, the estate featured a top-quality dairy with a herd of 1,500 purebred jerseys. But now the Biltmore Estate Winery is in the dairy building, and you may tour it, and that is it there. The 1994, this is the bad news, the 1994 AAA book lists the admission charge at $22.95 for the grounds, the house, and the winery, and you can stay on the property all day. Now we're going back out west again into northwestern New Mexico to Chaco Canyon. Chaco Canyon is actually a place in northwestern New Mexico, but the building was done so long ago and without modern tools and supplies that I chose to include it here. See, I was initially going to do places, and then I changed my mind. The full title is Chaco Cultural National Historic Park, and is part of the National Park Service lands. And this is a map of the whole canyon. You come in through here, having come, by the time you reach down in the canyon, you have come 30 miles of dirt and gravel road. And then the ruins are all along here and beyond. The campground is all the way down in here. I guess the campground is back in here. That's the visitors center there. And when I speak of Pueblo Bonito, it will be right in here. And this is Pueblo Bonito already. Pueblo Bonito is a beautiful village. It's the largest structure, and it dates back to the 900s AD. It contains 600 rooms, 40 kivers, and those are circular ceremonial rooms, and it was 4 stories high. In this one canyon, there are 6 large pueblos, not as large as Pueblo Bonito, and for a total of about 17, because there are many smaller ones. These were homes of the Anasazi, or the ancient ones. A large road system connected Chaco Canyon to 75 or so other communities, and yes, you see some petroglyphs in there as well. All of these pueblos were abandoned about 1130 to 1180 AD, and I'm looking down on part of Pueblo Bonito at this point. A good guess would be that a long-lasting drought caused the demise of this